to Discover La Jolla. I'm Jim McInerney, your host, and here we showcase the jewel of San Diego, and that's La Jolla, California. And I'm very excited to have my guest, Alex Yanke, with me. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
So you are an interior designer.
Correct.
And you've been doing this for a few years now.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been an interior designer?
So I probably started back in 2015,
Okay.
late
So
2015.
10 years now.
Yeah,
Okay.
coming on 10 years. Yeah.
And you grew up in La Jolla, is that
I did,
correct?
correct.
Okay, so one of the original native La Jollans. That's
Right.
great. We love native La Jolla.
Yes, we do.
And your business is called Westbourne
Correct.
Design?
Westbourne Studio.
Westbourne
I grew
Studio.
up on Westbourne, so
Hence the name.
hence the name. Yeah.
One of the best beaches in La Jolla.
Right.
So where did you get your start and how did that happen, Alex? How did you become an interior designer? How did
Yeah,
that
it kind of, I don't know. I think I kind of resisted it for a long time. I was like, that's not a career path for me. I grew up kind of always thinking I would get into business or finance or that type of world because that's where my family kind of did that. But I went to college. I went and studied economics. I hated it. I hated it so much. It was just
me
like,
too.
yeah,
Does that make you feel
accounting
better?
and
Oh, yeah.
all the numbers crunching.
Yeah.
And I was pretty good in school, but when I got to college, I was terrible. Like I was failing classes. It never happened to me before. So I kind of went on a soul searching mission and did a bunch of random stuff. And I ended up getting a degree in film and Italian.
Okay.
I went and studied abroad in Rome. And then I got out of college and I still sort of floundered a bit and wondered, what am I going to do now? I started an app with a friend. That didn't take off. I got my real estate license. That didn't really pan out for me. But I knew I was getting closer. I was getting warmer because I felt like
You liked real estate somehow. You liked
Yeah.
houses. You liked
I
residential.
loved being in homes and being sort of hosting these open houses was really fun, creating the vibe, the environment. And I'd always been drawn towards architecture, design in that way. And I said, okay, that's what I'm going to pivot toward. I'm going to go back to school essentially just to learn the architectural softwares that would be needed to land me a job, just get my foot in the door.
Okay.
And I was in LA at the time. So I got that schooling I needed enough to feel confident to walk into a firm and say, hire me to do whatever.
Okay.
And that's what I did. I went and I got an internship, essentially working for free for like 6 months every day, just, 9 to 5, grinding. But I got a ton of experience at a really small firm, and I still am super grateful for that opportunity because I put on a lot of hats and I got to learn so much. It was a crash course of design, and it also honed my skills on the technical side with architectural drawings and construction documents, which then led me to my next career move, which was just sort of leveling up to another firm where I could actually get paid, which was good.
Good. That's always
After
nice.
6 months,
Yeah.
of
Sure.
helping.
We all start somewhere.
Right.
All
So I got that next job, and that's where I really sort of took off.
Okay.
I was there for about 5 years or so, 4 or 5
And
years.
this was up in Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Okay.
Up in LA.
And then you decided LA's not for me. I want to get back to the jewel.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough industry to work in. I think at a big firm, you have a lot of success. It's never really your own, but it's fun to really work with these big design firms and these other big designers and work under their umbrella and really learn from them. You get access to incredible clientele and budgets. And so it was an awesome experience. But as a creative person, I think you want a little bit more autonomy and freedom to
Make it your own.
make it your own and also be in charge of kind of your day-to-day lifestyle stuff. And so COVID hit and, the world fell apart. My fiance and I were both living in LA, and we felt like this is as good a time as any to move back to San Diego and think about our future because we knew that's always where we wanted to be. We wanted to go back home. She's also from La Jolla, so it was just the right move for us.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I love to hear that story. La Jollans coming or staying in La Jolla.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit, what sort of style or what are you sort of known for in your design and in your outlook and how your approach to new clients?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would say that our design approach is more contemporary,
Okay.
but we're very influenced by kind of this old world meets new world aesthetic. I grew
Okay.
up traveling a lot. My dad's Italian, so we went to Europe every summer. And there's a certain element of this time-worn materials, these like patinated organic materials, whether it's stone or wood, um, that really gets more beautiful with age and use and
Okay.
this getting beaten up. We love that and we love incorporating that in terms of materiality into our work. So bringing that old world in and that type of design ethos to a more contemporary aesthetic is essentially what we try to do. That doesn't mean we're going like super monastic or minimalist.
Because that's now very common that people associate contemporary with minimalist. Like,
Right.
oh, there's nothing in the room except this beautiful chair and a mirror.
Right.
Right. So it's not that.
It's a really delicate balance, and I think, it's hard for us to define sometimes
I'm sure because
exactly.
each house presents its own
Right.
characteristics.
And each house, each project that we work on really deserves a bespoke approach. So each time we work with a client, it's ultimately our goal to figure out what they like and what their vibe is, what their style is, what their lifestyle is, and cater the approach to them. There's definitely a through line between all of our jobs, all of our projects, because we want them to have a certain element of continuity in terms of our portfolio. But each one is unique, right?
Okay.
And that could be taking influence from the architecture. It could be taking influence from exactly what the client wants. Let's say they say, I need this in my bedroom. We make it happen, and that's the approach that we take.
Do you find it challenging that clients don't know what they want, but they want something and
Yeah,
they're not able to really describe it? And then it's
right.
your job to try to figure out what's going on in their brain and then translate that to material
Right.
design features in the house?
There's a specific design language that I think most civilians, most of our clients don't really have, right? Which makes sense. They're not designers. And I
Right.
work with, high net worth individuals on luxury, residences
Right.
here in San Diego and abroad. So for us, a lot of these people, they know how to get what they want. They're high performing. They're titans of industry, right? But they don't know exactly
How to
what,
describe it
yeah, how to
or point
describe
to it
it
and say, I want
exactly.
that
And
there.
it's not their language.
Right.
So I'm not a physician. I'm not going to go into an operating room and tell somebody how to do something. I wouldn't even know where to start.
Of course.
So that's part of what we do.
That's why people hire you.
They hire us, but it's also the beginning of a relationship, right? It's not so transactional where it's like we just come in to do a job, because working with people on their private homes is super intimate. And it's something that we don't take for granted, that we're invited into somebody's inner sanctum.
Right.
And we work on building that relationship and
trust.
building the trust to understand what it is that you want. And that process looks different for each client, but most of the time we go through a conceptual design phase and we're sharing images back and forth. And that image
Starts guiding.
yeah, that
down a
image
direction.
reference that helps guide the conversation to understand what people are leaning towards in the vibe and the aesthetic of what they want in their home. That being said, it can get tricky. Sometimes I get thrown so many different images that have absolutely no through
connection.
line. Right. And then I'm like, okay, what is it that you want? I'm lost because you wanted this here and
Yeah.
that's not gonna look good.
So it can take a while, I would imagine. You could say, oh, you have a timeline of 2 months, but I could
Right.
imagine projects start becoming more complicated. And as they
Right.
dive into one room, now they want to go do this other room, and this room doesn't match that room. And
Yeah.
so I imagine the timelines can grow.
Yeah, timelines are always, I mean, we work on a lot of projects that are ground up construction or
Okay.
full renovations. And
Okay.
that is our ideal approach because we have a bit more creative freedom to create that
From the
continuity.
beginning.
Yeah. And you create a vernacular inside the home that makes sense rather than being choppy or piecemeal. But at the same time, every client's different, every job's different. And some of them do start with 1 or 2 rooms and then it moves on and it grows and it escalates. And I do feel like even the ones that we start and finish, are never really finished because
they always keep coming back and tweaking.
yeah, there's tweaks that need to be made and your lifestyle changes, updates.
So people's families are changing, growing,
Right.
shrinking. People are passing away. People are being
Exactly.
born. People are getting divorced. People are getting married. So
Exactly.
those
Yeah.
dynamics change.
So the relationship is really something that we look forward to being long term. It's not again a start and finish date. And our approach to building homes and making them actually feel like a home is extremely layered. So it's difficult to determine when it's 100% finished.
I see.
A lot of times these homes that look the best and they feel the best, and when you're hosting and entertaining, it's not like you went into a one-stop shop and got everything and it's installed and it's done. Our approach is more personalized, and that means building out your collection that makes sense to you. Is it your art that you've found on travels?
So are your clients then asking you to go out and find those pieces?
Yes.
Those
So
furniture pieces and the art pieces?
we will
as
find
well,
top
everything.
to bottom, everything.
start to finish,
But
the whole nine.
it's a relationship that still exists between us and our clients, where they'll be on trips to New Zealand looking at art in galleries, and they're texting me, right? Despite the time difference or
of
whatever.
course.
And I'll be in LA shopping for another job in a gallery, and I'll see something that's super unique and I think a client would like. So it really it's happening all the
Live,
time.
like real time.
Like real time. And
Yeah.
and I build those relationships, and they've got a relationship with me where it becomes very personal and open, and people, I've been with clients or, communicated with clients, and they're sending me things that I hate or I think looks terrible, and I say absolutely not. And they're like, great, good. I didn't buy it, and we'll see what else we find on our trip, and it is what it is.
So that's got to be interesting too, because I come across this, is telling the client no, or don't love that idea.
Right.
Have you considered this? That you must have to use some restraint here and there, because I'm sure people, to have the whole package connected,
Right.
the carpet matching the paint, matching the art, and the materials used is really a very complicated recipe.
Right.
And with wealthy clients, they can throw curveballs at you, and that's got to be challenging to manage their expectations, reality, and make it look good.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. There's so many challenging aspects to the job.
That it's all one big challenge.
No, I mean, I think what it comes down to and what you're mentioning, the hardest part is the song and dance and the delicacy with which that you have to handhold and work with your client. And that's something that we really enjoy at the same time. This is like
A dance.
it's
That's
a
interesting.
dance, and it's fun, but there's aspects of it that are challenging where you do have to say no. I mean, you just do.
Right.
And that goes back to the trust. They're hiring you because they trust you, and you
right.
build that trust in. And when you say no, I think that only reinforces your value.
I believe that. I
Because
believe that.
Yeah, I mean, if I just said yes to everything,
Yeah,
then
you'd have some ugly looking houses.
right, they'd be some
Yeah.
ugly looking houses, and the clients ultimately wouldn't be happy
Correct.
at the end.
Right.
My
Because you didn't
goal-
guide them.
Right. I didn't provide any value.
Right.
I was just there, saying yes to everything.
So is the focus now moving forward with Westbourne really to focus primarily on just the higher end luxury residential, like La Jolla, coastal markets, Rancho? Is that the focus now?
Given the nature of the business, obviously we're trying to make money too, like anybody else, right? And so that does appeal to a really select niche group of clients that generally live in La Jolla and Rancho and Coronado. But we're super open to interesting and creative opportunities. So for us, it's more about aligning with the job, aligning with our clients and their creative vision, than it is necessarily about working in specific markets.
Okay.
And exclusively in those
So you
markets.
do commercial buildings, you do
Yes.
other type besides residential.
We would do pretty much anything that
Needed design.
needed design if we felt that we could provide value again, if we felt like the fit was right.
Right.
And that there was a creative alignment between us and the client.
And their expectations, their budget,
Right.
their
It's really that initial conversation that is super important. And, I've been on job sites and different consultations with clients where, you know, red flags will pop up and I'll say, no, this isn't going to work, you know, and you have to get out before it's too late.
Right.
And other times it's like, this is a really cool project. And I really think that I could bring value to this. And I think that I would be really excited working on it, but the budget's not really consistent with what we're doing. And that's when I try to make some workarounds and see how we can work together and get creative in that way.
Good.
It just depends on, every project is different.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. I believe that to be true in real estate. I mean, yeah. Houses are different. People that live in the houses are different. Their needs are different. So sounds like you should have work for a while.
Yeah, that's the goal. Fingers crossed.
How is technology sort of shaping or changing your industry recently?
Recently, I mean, in the last 10 years, 15 years with technology and construction documentation and, you know, drawings, architectural drawings, renderings.
Right.
That was really something that I was able to ride the wave on when I first got in, right?
Okay.
When I went back and I learned all the architectural softwares, that gave me sort of this access to an accelerated track in design that helped me take on more and more responsibility and more autonomy. And so I'm super grateful for that. And that experience allowed me to really hone my skills so that I can do everything top to bottom. I don't need to source out for a third party drawing. You know, if I need to make
CAD
like
drawings
this, exactly, CAD drawings. I was on site this morning. I have a project in La Jolla working with some electricians. There was a reflected ceiling plan for all of the lighting in the house. And we were walking through and I had to make changes, and I have my laptop and I'm doing things here. You know, it can be that instantaneous and in real time. But as that, you know, sort of gets more and more involved with technology, it's changing more and more every day with AI. And
I was going to ask you, how is AI creeping into this space?
I think it's really something that isn't perfect yet. It's not a perfect science. I think that there is a lot of room for improvement, and I think there's a lot of value that AI can bring to design.
Okay.
But working with even renderings, for example, that can be super time consuming and super photorealistic, can also be a disservice to our clients. Sometimes if we're working on a job and I create these images that are really real, right? Realistic.
Right.
And I show it to a client, they can say, yeah, I love it. That's great. But it's really hard to take that image and make it 100% translated into real life. Things happen, right?
Right.
And
you can't get the material.
The material might be different.
Wrong color.
The veining on the marble might be a little different. The wood texture and the wood tone might be different in real life.
Right.
The colors are going to be different. The way the sun hits. So I try to stay away from really showing clients these photorealistic
that are too exact.
Yeah, and even in our practice now, I'm leaning more towards some of these sketches that are
more conceptual.
Yeah, more conceptual, and then looking at real materials in tandem with sketches that
makes sense,
that get the vibe across. So it's a weird way of implementing technology that doesn't actually interfere with the process. It should help the process only. And that's where I see AI as being something that I don't know how it's gonna
shake out. Well, I don't think anybody does yet. So we're just all going along for the ride.
I know. I'm like, I can't even get started on it because I feel like I'm just too old.
That must be kind of neat, having grown up in La Jolla and having the knowledge and the history in La Jolla to be working on these homes. I'm sure some of your time growing up is now translating into your work because you know about La Jolla and you know what the buyers like and you know what properties are selling. I know you're very active watching the residential market and you're tracking things. So you're seeing the latest, greatest in La Jolla and what buyers are gravitating towards. And I'm sure that's a huge value as opposed to maybe a designer that's based out of Seattle or based out of Tulsa or based out of some other place.
I mean, I definitely know like the vibe for every little neighborhood. I grew up with friends that lived here, there, and everywhere in between. So yeah, I'm a local. I understand the culture really cool. of everything. And I think too, growing up and watching La Jolla evolve, even still, like you said, I am always looking at the market. I love to peek at what's popping up. I like to go inside these houses
I know, that's what
virtually.
you're saying.
Yeah.
You always try to get inside and see
Right.
what's
I
going
like
on.
to see. I mean, I'm always fascinated by design and architecture, and there's a
good.
ton of historic properties. There's a lot of design pedigree in La Jolla.
Yeah.
Coming from LA, where I think there was so much overdevelopment and everything turned into this white box.
Right.
I feel really excited about the opportunity to work on my hometown community and preserve a lot of cool, different cultural, architectural homes that I think create the entire landscape of La Jolla. I don't want to see it just turn into boxy, white, sterile environment, right?
Don't let it.
I won't.
Don't let
if I can do my own part, that's what I will do.
That's good. It's nice to see how passionate you are about your work and your career. I think that goes a long way when you're kind of that in love with what you do. It shows in your final product. Right?
I hope so. Yeah, I definitely hope so.
That was great. Well, thank you very much for coming in and sharing that and your story in Westbourne Studios. What a great name.
Thank you
one
very
of the
much.
best beaches, I think, in California. So
yeah,
good job there.
Good spot walking down to the beach growing up.
Well, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Discover La Jolla, and we'll be sure to see you on the next one. See you soon.